Good morning, all. The Jocelyn Gray Avatar is back with your Sunday morning announcements. If you're with us on Facebook or YouTube, please subscribe to get notifications when we have new videos. If you're with us on Zoom, drop us a hi in the chat. We'd love to say hello back. If you're with us in person, hello everybody here. And if this is your first visit, please sign the guest book either in the lobby or online at oakcliffuu.org/guest. Today, the topic is the civil rights movement in Dallas, and we have two very special guests in the pulpit. Prominent civil rights activist Reverend Peter Johnson, founder of the Peter Johnson Institute for Nonviolence, and Reverend Don Robinson, executive director of the Institute. We hope you can stick around after the service for Talkback, where we gather in a circle and discuss the sermon and related topics. At 11:15, we have Adult Religious Exploration with Sarah Rickey in the Charity Building, in person and on Zoom. Sarah continues with Building Your Own Theology, a class designed to help people define and better understand their own spiritual journey as well as others. Today, individualism and community, what is the role of the church? And since it's the third Sunday of the month, our White Accountability Group will be meeting in the Hope Common Room and online at 12:15. If you are white identifying and want to work on being a true anti-racist ally and accomplice, please join us. Then there's a worship ministry meeting at 2 p.m. Anyone who is willing to help us plan worship services, or wants to see what goes into planning them, is encouraged to attend. Coming up this week, every Monday, our Widening the Circle of Concern work group meets on Zoom at 3 p.m. If you would like to help us on our path to becoming an anti-racist church, please consider joining us. Questions or concerns? Email wcoc@oakcliffuu.org. See your e-blast for an update on our DEI initiative, and for the Zoom link to join the Monday meeting. And please remember your DEI initiative liaisons, Yolanda Graham and Bobby Blanche. They want to help us make this program a success. We welcome anyone who can join us for Teamwork Tuesday from 4 to 6. Note that there is more power washing to be done, and that's a lot of fun. Next Sunday is our Sankofa Garden fundraiser. We'll have a potluck lunch, and while we're enjoying our meal together, there will be a raffle and auction to support our community outreach with the Sankofa Garden. Eric Wallace will be in the pulpit, and then we'll skip talkback and go straight to the potluck. Please bring a favorite dish to share, or drinks, or ice. We always need ice. Donations have been coming in for the raffle and auction. From mineral specimens to jewelry to eclipse viewing glasses, tarot card readings, and Rita's famous margaritas. Have an item or service to donate? We can always use more. Email fundraising@oakcliffuu.org or see Eric or Kathy after church. And thank you to all who have already donated directly to the garden. You are awesome. Anyone can donate online at oakcliffuu.org/donate. Just select Sankofa Garden, or you can text a donation from your phone adding SG to the text to donate number. Details on all of this and more can be found on the back of your order of service and in the weekly e-blast. If you're not receiving the e-blast and want to, just sign up at oakcliffuu.org/e-news. We have a member anniversary to celebrate today. Debbie Toe joined UUCOC on July 14th, 2019. We also have a member birthday to recognize. Happy birthday to our tech guy, audio guy, video guy, and member of the comm team, worship team, repairs team, member of the social justice ministry, and Labyrinth Walk Coffee House, my dad, Scott Gray. That's it for now. Hope you have a great day and the rest of the week, and especially hope to see you next Sunday for the Potluck and Garden fundraiser.
Good morning. I hope you guys don't mind. I'm going to break in with a special announcement here. So if you've been following us for a while, you know that our president, Renee Brill, has been doing a lot of services on anti-racism. And while that is coming to an end in the near future, and we're going to move on to a different topic, our church wants to make sure that we continue with our work on anti-racism, not because any of us are racist intentionally, but because we can't help the culture that we're in. And whether we like it or not, that culture can be rather racist at times. So with that in mind, one of the things that we want to do as a congregation is we want to consider a proposed eighth principle that has been presented to the UUA. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read it for just a moment so that you know what it is. The eighth principle of Unitarian Universalism reads, "We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse and multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions." And this eighth principle is being promoted by BLUE, the Black Lives of UU. We have brochures in the center table in the walkthrough. This is not a demand, it's not a proposal yet for our congregation, but it is a conversation that we feel it is important to have. And I hope you will consider it in the future.
Good morning. Welcome to the UU Church of Oak Cliff. Here we gather in sanctuary where we're free to pursue our own unique and individual spiritual journeys in an atmosphere of acceptance, compassion, and celebration. We seek to build a community where what you believe is less important than how your beliefs guide and inform your participation in the world. Ours is a community that values the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. We welcome you. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of love, compassion, and forgiveness. And in Spanish,
que esta luz que ahora encendemos nos inspire a usar nuestros dones y poderes para sanar y no para herir, para ayudar y no para impedir, para bendecir y no para maldecir, para servirte a ti, espíritu de amor, compasión y perdón.
Opening words today are by Rise Williams, Break Down Barriers. Spirit of life, come to us to break down barriers, to widen horizons, to make us less judgmental. Help us to see the larger picture and the kinder conclusion, to love and let live, to embrace and forgive, to sustain and care. Help us to reach out to our better selves, that we may love more and hate less, care more and reject less, that bound together by understanding, we may sustain each other through trial and tribulation, through joy and happiness, through sickness and health. Help us to be joined in a common purpose of hope and fulfillment. Renew and revive us. We seek a common holy ground for one and all. Amen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirs of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
In our community, we make time each week to share pieces of our lives with one another, our joys and our sorrows. We do this because each person in this community has value. Each person's experience matters. We share our sorrow with one another today, knowing that sorrow comes into each person's life, knowing that together we offer comfort. Please share your sorrows publicly by posting them in the Zoom chat or send them to our Facebook Messenger or speak them aloud.
When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love.
We also share our joys with one another, knowing that joy comes into all our lives, knowing that joy calls unto joy, knowing that together our voices can rise in a chorus of celebration. Please share your joys quickly by posting them to the Zoom chat or send them to our Facebook Messenger or speak them aloud. Ours is a covenantal church, Latin for come together. Covenant means a solemn agreement of promise from the heart regarding a course of action between parties. The practice of promising to walk together is the core of our faith. Simply put, it is a guide for the behavior we expect from ourselves and each other. We are bound together by the promises we make to one another, and we recite our covenant during every worship service. Please rise in body or in spirit as we recite our covenant.
Because we love one another, we honor each individual's spiritual journey. We celebrate life's abundance in service to each other, our community, and the world. We connect with each other in love, respect, and acceptance. Thus do we covenant together. And now in Spanish. Porque nos amamos uno al otro. Honoramos el viaje espiritual de cada individuo. Celebramos la abundancia de la vida en el servicio a entre sí, nuestra comunidad y el mundo. Ponemos en contacto a unos con otros en el amor, respeto y excepción. Así que hacemos pacto.
Reverend Peter Johnson is perhaps Dallas' most prominent and longest-serving civil rights activist. He served in organizations and movements with many of the nation's great activists, including the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and Dr. Ralph Abernathy. His colleagues and supervisors have included Andrew Young and John L. Lewis. And he brought to Dallas at one point the Reverend Jesse Jackson. His early collective voting rights efforts here in Dallas led to significant changes to our current city politics and government. His issues have included, well, we'll start with anti-war, that was everybody, housing and homelessness, gun violence, poverty, racial equity, voting rights, immigration, community gardens. Reverend Johnson is founder of the Peter Johnson Institute on Nonviolence. He has a book coming out in the next few weeks. We were hoping to have copies of it here today, but alas, we don't. But meanwhile, some of his early activities in Dallas have been rather extensively documented in Jim Schutz's book, The Accommodation, The Politics of Race in an American City. So I give you Reverend Peter Johnson, and he's brought with him Reverend Don Robinson, and I'll let them work together on this.
Before Peter comes up, just a couple of things. I have been honored to work with Peter for more than 30 years now. And there were 2 dates or 2 years that shaped his life. 1963. Many of you know that was the year of the March on Washington, but what people do not realize what happened in Plaquemine, Louisiana, to where that was where the civil rights movement started in Louisiana. And it was on one fateful day that Peter and another group of high school and college students were marching in Plaquemine. They chased them back to a church called Plymouth Rock Baptist Church, and there they thought they were safe. But as they were having a rally, they tear-bombed the church. And not only did they tear-bomb the church, they rode into it on horses. And they used cattle prods as they were coming after the young people there. And what Peter Stark remembers when a sheriff came up into the pulpit of the church on horse, shouting profanities. He knew then that there was such thing as man's inhumanity to man. The other time that took place that changed his life was in 1968, the year that Dr. King was assassinated. Dr. King had so often talked about his demise and talked about his years, but it's one thing to hear someone talk about it, it's another when it actually happens. And that changed the arc of his life because he realized then that no matter how loud the voice, no matter how wonderful the life, it can be taken. So the good that you do remains behind you. So do good when you can, while you can, or whenever you can. So Peter arrived here in Dallas in 1969. Weird how he got here because he did not want to come to Dallas, Texas. Amen. He did not want to come here, but something that people do not know, as he's going to address in a few seconds, is that Dr. King died without life insurance. No one would insure him because he was such a high risk. And so when Dr. King died, he actually died in poverty. And so those a part of the movement came together to see what could they do to help Coretta Scott King and those 4 children. And so it was that led him to come to Dallas. So 1963 and 1968 prepared him for what he was going to face in Dallas, Texas. So Peter, can you come and join us, sir?
Thank you. And thank you to my brother and my friend, Reverend Don Robinson. Don's father was the Reverend Dr. Hemi Robinson, a tremendous civil rights and religious leader in this part of the country. Don's father filed the first lawsuit to desegregate the schools in Waco, Texas. And he won, Don's father, to integrate the schools in Waco. So Don and his siblings became the first children of color to go to the white schools in Waco, Texas. So Don knows what it feels like to be called nigger every day. He knows what it's like to have people spitting in your face every day and surviving it. And because of his father, continuing to be committed to agape, loving everybody and forgiving everybody. It is the power of the teachings of the religious leaders of that period. And I am proud to call him my friend, continuing the ongoing legacy that King started with your father and other religious leaders in the South. I am happy to be here. I think this is my third time being able to spend time with you all. I have a number of friends here, and I would be stupid to try to identify everybody. But Mavis, I've got to say hello to you. Mavis and I have been friends since I was young and good looking. I got pictures to prove that. But what this institution stands for means something to me and to the history of the civil rights movement. I was sitting in the back of Ebenezer Church in Atlanta, and there was a national meeting going on in the church. And the young men was in the extreme back of the church doing what young men do, cutting up and making jokes and giggling and doing what we do. The young men sitting back there was me, Julian Bond, John Lewis, Jesse Jackson, Leon Hall. All of the young men that worked for Martin King was in the back of Ebenezer discussing foolishness. And in the middle of that day, I heard two things from the pulpit that I did not lack. One was the name Peter Johnson in Dallas, Texas in the same sentence. So I put my hand up. And Andy Young said, Peter, put your hand down, you're going to Dallas. 1969. Martin King is in his grave. We are wrestling with the reality that Dr. King died without no money and no life insurance. And I know people say, well, he was the pastor of that big rich church. No, he wasn't. That was his daddy's church. Dr. King was an assistant at Ebenezer. The man I call Papa, Daddy King, Pop, was the pastor of Ebenezer, not Dr. King. Dr. King did not have a church. Dr. King's income came from the civil rights movement. When Dr. King won the Nobel Peace Prize, they gave him a check. He gave the money away. The same week Coretta King's car was repossessed. Our commitment in America to change America peacefully and nonviolently came from King. What King also taught us was that this couldn't be about making money. That if our struggle was going to be authentic and legitimate, it could not be about Mercedes cars. You had to make a commitment to justice and accept the reality of poverty. This is what the civil rights movement was about. When I came to Dallas in 1969, I had one purpose: raising money to help Coretta raise Dr. King's children. They were little bitty children. I could hold them in my arms at that time. Dr. King died without no money, no life insurance. And the idea that we had was to help Mrs. King. Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier and a Jewish Hollywood producer named Samuel Livingston, we call him Sammy Boy, came to Atlanta, met with us at Pasca's in Atlanta with an idea. Belafonte and Sidney came, and their idea was, listen, we can take Martin King's life, which is documented in news footage, and put together a documentary on Martin's life. The documentary can premiere in 800 cities around the world, and we can raise this amount of money. Now, Samuel Livingston, a Jewish producer, also brought Jewish investors with him. And they told us in this meeting at Pasco's, if we raise this amount of money for Mrs. King and Dr. King's babies, we can take this money and invest it in these stocks and bonds and whatever. And that would give Coretta and King's children income from now on. Now, this is in 1968. King is in his grave. And we are trying to figure out how to help Coretta raise his babies. They put together this documentary. We would meet again in September and view the document. All of us in Atlanta would come together again with Coretta and view this documentary that they had put together. The documentary was going to premiere in October 1969 in 800 cities around the world. So in this meeting at Ebenezer, there was this map of the world on the right, on the back there on the wall, big huge map of the world. And they had little red buttons everywhere that they was going to send staff people from the staff to help organize and mobilize this premiere showing. I'm looking at this map. Now, all of us, the young men, we sitting in the back cutting up and having fun. But I'm looking at the map, and I'm thinking, the Virgin Islands, that's where Peter needs to go. So I put my hand up. Peter, what do you want? Well, Dr. Abernathy, I'm looking at that map. Can I go to the Virgin Islands? No, you're going to Dallas. The decision to send me to Dallas didn't have anything to do with Dallas, with racism, or with the white power structure. The decision to send me to Dallas was based on one thing and one thing alone: Love Field. Love Field was the best airport in the Southwest. I had Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Louisiana. I had the 5 states in the Southwest. The best airport to run all over the Southwest was Love Field. The decision didn't have nothing to do with Dallas, Texas at all. It was about getting that movie premiere organized all over the Southwest. Stay in a hotel in downtown Dallas. Don't get involved in nothing in Dallas. Do your assignment. Also understand, in the civil rights movement, there was a deep, deep bitterness toward black leaders in Dallas, especially black church leaders in Dallas. If you talk to Thurgood Marshall about Dallas, Texas, he would tell you how no good the Negro leaders was in Dallas. If you talk to Andrew Young, or to Daddy Young, Papa Young and his daddy, or to Ralph Abernathy, any of the men, they would tell you about what the civil rights movement thought about Dallas, Texas, and about the Negro leaders in Dallas, Texas, and how the Dallas white power structure had their foot on the neck of the black people in Dallas. So when I was sent to Dallas, the orders was, don't do nothing to help black people in Dallas. Here. When I was sent here, the night I came to Dallas, Andy drove me from the office in Atlanta on Auburn Avenue to the airport. Andy driving me back and forth to the airport in Atlanta was very normal. This time, he parked, walked to the trunk of the car with me to get my luggage out, and walked to the door of the airport talking to me, telling me how dangerous Dallas was. Do not trust the Negro leaders in Dallas. Why did Andy know so much about Dallas? There was one Negro on the Dallas City Council. His name was George Allen. George Allen was Andy Young's uncle. I call him Uncle George. That's what Andy called him. I'd known him all my life. He was the only Negro on the city council. Dallas had a deal called the at-large system. Y'all know what that means? The political at-large system, that meant if you ran for the city council from Oak Cliff, the whole city had to vote for you. Although you're going to represent a district, but you have to get the whole city, everybody is elected at large, citywide. So let's say, to understand the bigotry, that the black community represent 35% of the population in the city of Dallas. So if that's true, then maybe the black community ought to have 35% of the political representation. But you can't have 35% because everybody's elected at large. That means you got to get elected from people from all over the city. So if you got a white man who lives way out north Dallas and he has plenty of money, you can't win. Because if he run, he going to represent the city. You're going to run from a district. Black people might vote for you, but you have to get votes from at large. So when we came here in 1969, the first major lawsuit we filed in federal court was against the at-large system. Let's break that up. And we did. First time we won, the city appealed it. We ran all over America with our friends, Dick Gregory and other people, raising money to continue to fight. And eventually we would win at the Supreme Court to break up the at-large system in this part of the country. I worked all over the South in the civil rights movement. I worked everywhere from the Carolinas to Texas. I worked in every southern state. I worked in every major black community from Harlem in New York to Watts in Los Angeles. The worst place I worked in wasn't Selma, wasn't Mississippi, Dallas, Texas. The most disgusting, frustrating, asinine, mean, dangerous place I worked was in Dallas, Texas. There was a time I never slept in the same place in this city because of the threats. There was a time when they kicked the doors in with their guns, I was sleeping somewhere else. I wasn't in there. Because growing up in the civil rights movement, we had to learn how to survive. I worked and survived Mississippi and Alabama, so I know damn well I was going to survive Texas. Out of the progressive people in this part of the country, we were able to put together a multiracial, interdenominational coalition of men and women, blacks and whites and Mexican Americans and American Jews and gay people, to work together collectively for change in this part of the country. And if somebody would have told me that we were going to have a black mayor in Dallas, I would have said, no, we aren't. But God moves in mysterious ways, and through persistence and work and being able to get people like Dick Gregory and Julian Bond to help us raise money, we registered voters in this part of the country. We got people to agree to work together. The first time I had a meeting with black leaders and Mexican American leaders in Dallas, they didn't even know each other. When I sat down with Pancho Medrano and the leaders from the brown community, they didn't know the leaders from the black community. Pancho is somebody that we knew from Selma. And we were able to find ways to unite both of those communities and get them to understand, if you work together, you can force this part of the country to give you their ear and listen to you if you work together. We were also able to sit down and talk to, there was a Jewish rabbi here named Levi Ola, about that tall. I had met Levi in Selma. We were able to get our friends in the Jewish community to join us politically and create that kind of coalition where you could get things done and change things. In doing so, we were able to get police officers to stop calling black people niggers. Doing one simple thing, registering black people to vote. Powerful weapon, didn't have to shoot nobody. The history, to me, is special. And hopefully we can get it documented before I go to my final destination. Now, if you all have questions, I would love to hear them. No math questions. Don wants me to talk about Meals on Wheels and food stamps. We had a program in the civil rights movement called Operation Breadbasket. The program was created by Jesse Jackson, who's in bad shape physically now. His health is real bad. And Leon Sullivan and King. They created a program called Operation Breadbasket. Breadbasket was the economic thrust of SCLC, of our organization. Breadbasket was created to create jobs and business for black people. But the words Operation Breadbasket sent the wrong message to the ears of black people. Black people would come to my office at the Jesse's office up in Chicago looking for emergency food. They realized there were no programs in America at that time dealing with hunger and malnutrition. When people first started coming to my office asking about food, I didn't understand what the heck. Would you come and ask me? This is a civil rights organization. There ain't no food here. Black people would come to my office looking for emergency food and curse me out because I didn't understand why you're coming to me. We would meet in Chicago And Jesse and I and Willie Barrell and a couple of us from around the nation began to talk about this problem of people saying they're hungry. Coretta King said, "What did Martin tell you to do about that?" What Martin taught us to do, you research it. You don't make decisions based on nothing but facts. You research it, you get all of the facts, then you decide what you're going to do or what you're not going to do. But you base it on data, on information. So based on the teachings of King, we established campaigns to research and study hunger. I had a committee chaired by a social worker with a master's degree in research, Caroline Blackburn, to research hunger and malnutrition. When they brought me about that big, the report on hunger and malnutrition, I sat up and read that all night long. That this research committee made up of social workers, educated social workers, black and white. What I can tell you about that, I never got through reading all of it. It made me cry. It still makes me cry. A welfare mother, lady named Ruth Jefferson, on the welfare. She was president of the Welfare Rights. She convinced me to tour the West Dallas projects, which I did with Ruth and a bunch of welfare mothers. I'm not really that sensitive to hunger until this day. One of the apartments we go through is an elderly lady in her late 70s. We eventually ended up calling her Mama Stood. We go to this lady's apartment, and she's sauteing onions. So when we go in her apartment to talk to her about hunger and malnutrition, I can smell the sauteing onions. And they haven't had lunch or breakfast. And they really smell good. So in the discussion with this senior citizen lady, I asked her, "Honey, what you cooking back there?" Oh, she says, "I'm sauteing some onions." Boy, they smell good. What you gonna have with them? Now we sitting in her, I guess what we call her living room. She said, "Well, come back in the kitchen, let me show you." So I get up, follow this elderly lady with Ruth Jefferson, his welfare mother, and we go to her kitchen. And she is sauteing onions on the stove. And I said, "Well, honey, what you gonna have with those onions?" She turns to me and reaches over on her counter and picks up this can of dog food. It made me weep. It still does. She explained to me that dog food only cost 10 cents a can. She could get 10 cans for $1. It is an experience I'll never forget. I called for a national meeting. We met at Pascal's in Atlanta. Me, John Lewis, Jesse Jackson, Julia Bond, Reverend Abernathy, Andy Young, Mrs. King, Lil Martin, and we talked about that old lady. Out of that came the campaign against hunger and malnutrition. Dick Gregory said, "Pete, I'm going to go on the hunger fast." And I said, "Dick, if you go on the hunger fast, I'm going to go on the hunger fast on the steps of the Dallas City Hall." I got me a sleeping bag. And I stayed there for 18 days and 18 nights. And I only drank water. I lost 39 pounds. Never gained it back. While I was on my hunger fast, there was no cell phones or technology that exists today. The only way they could communicate with me was through the payphones in City Hall. I'm on the steps of the Dallas City Hall. One of the things that happened while I was on that 18-day hunger fast, one of my uncles passed in Louisiana. Not just one of my uncles, but my parrain. Y'all come survive. Y'all can't speak no Creole? What's wrong with you? Can you make gumbo? Well, good. Parrain means godfather in the Creole language. So my parrain, my godfather, passed while I was on a hunger fast. He was also my uncle, my father's oldest brother. And he was pastor of one of the largest black churches in New Orleans, the church that I would have inherited if I had not been on the hunger fast. I had to make a decision whether to end my hunger fast and go to Louisiana to bury my parrain and do his eulogy. I stay on the hunger fast and try to accomplish the goals. I decided to do what I think Dr. King would have wanted me to do. Stay on the hunger fast. Probably was the most difficult decision ever made in my life. My aunt, my uncle's wife and boyfriend, I couldn't get her to understand why I couldn't come and do my uncle's eulogy. Roberta never forgave me. She disinherited me. So the apartments and the homes and all of the things that my uncle owned, I traded them to feed the hungry. Seemed to be more important to me at the time. The struggle for all of God's children to treat everybody right, to accept everybody, continues. And I would hope that the Unitarian Church would continue our commitment. God bless you all.
There is always a light when we are ready to see it. There is always a light when we are ready to be it. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill, together we will. There is always your light in the dark. We are ready to see it. There is always your light in the dark. We are ready to be it. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night and be a gift. Together we will. There is always your light. There is always light. We are ready to see it. There is always your light. There is always light. We are ready to be it. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night and be a gift. Together we will. There is always light. There is always light. There is always light. There is always light. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night and be a climb this hill. Together we will. There is always light. There is always light. There is always light. There is always light. Be the light.
join me in reciting the Widening the Circle of Concern covenant. We, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Oak Cliff, commit ourselves to the study and dismantling of racism and oppression within our congregation. We commit our congregation and ourselves to the work of anti-racism and anti-oppression. We commit ourselves to listening, to learning, and to action. When we fail, we commit ourselves to trying again and again. We covenant to begin this work and to continue until all of us can truly say that we are a beloved community of justice, equity, and compassion. Thank you. Our Widening the Circle of Concern reading this week is called Loving the Ark. It is by Elizabeth Nguyen, and she worked in the Office of Youth and Young Adult Ministries at UUA, Unitarian Universalist Association. Sorry, got to watch those acronyms. And Elizabeth serves youth and young adults of color. I do not have a date on when this was written, but as anybody that's been paying attention has noticed, history keeps echoing, rhyming, repeating. It doesn't really matter exactly what year this was written. Loving the Ark. God, who is with us in the courtrooms, at the border, in the streets, in the struggle. We do not know if this ark bends toward justice. The great test of our Unitarian Universalist faith is not whether we believe we can bend the ark, but how we are when the bending looks oh so differently from what we expected. When we're met with swear words when we expected songs. When we're met with a group of white people talking about white identity when we expected multiracial community. When we're met with a people of color space when we expected multiracial community. May we know the sacredness of people of color space, the holiness of white people supporting each other, and the power of cursing at injustice. When our efforts feel frustrating and hopeless, when we expected to see outcomes, when our people's bodies are dying in the streets and we have no idea how to be all right, when our people's spirits are dying from the grinding violence of white supremacy, when the era of Ferguson becomes the era of Baltimore, becomes the era of Charleston, and we don't know what is next. When we've been in this work for 6 years or 6 decades, and we look around at our congregation, our local police, our schools, our prisons, and we have no idea what justice could look like. Our faith teaches us 2 truths: that we are always enough, that the great circle of love casts no one out, and that we are responsible for bending our small piece of the ark, for finding our own racial justice front lines. When we find our front lines, we find not only our hope, but we also find our most effective action. UU writer and theologian Kenny Wiley says in his Unitarian Universalist Black Lives Matter theology, Right now, we are being called by our ancestors, by our principals, by young Black activists across the country to promote and affirm. We are young and Black, and your life matters. Let me give you that again. To affirm. We've been called to affirm this. You are young and Black, and your life matters just the same. You stole something, and your life matters just the same. I have been taught to fear you, and your life matters just the same. The police are releasing your criminal record, and your life matters just the same. They're calling you a thug, and your life matters just the same. There are no exceptions. Black Lives Matter is universalism in practice. May it be so.
Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place that is so sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. Members, if you are contributing cash towards your pledge, please use the envelope provided and write your name on it. To text your donation, see the number on your order of service. For more options, see oakcliffuu.org/donate.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy. Así compartimos y vivimos hoy. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy. Así compartimos y vivimos hoy.
Our closing words today by Andrea Hawkins Camper be about the work. May we see all as it is, and may it be as we see it. May we be the ones to make it as it should be. For if not us, who? If not now, when? This is answering the cry of justice with the work of peace. This is redeeming the pain of history with the grace of wisdom. This is the work we are called to do, and this is the call we answer now, to be the barrier and the bridge, to be the living embodiment of our principles, to be about the work of building the beloved community, to be a people of intention and a people of conscience.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Extinguimos esta llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los llevaremos en el corazón hasta que estemos juntos otra vez.